for CoStar News Hotels, and I am reporting from the Hunter Conference here in Atlanta, and I'm speaking with Ben Campbell, President and CEO of Hospitality America. Ben, thanks so much for taking a break from your conference to come chat with me.
Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for having me.
Well, Hospitality America has turned 30 this year, is that right?
That's right.
So that's a pretty big business anniversary. What does it mean to y'all to have such longevity in the industry?
It means a lot. I mean, as you know, this industry is really tough, but it's, for us, we love it every day. If you don't have the passion for it, you certainly don't make it 30 years. And for me, what that means now as the next leader of Hospitality America, as CEO for the past 4 years, is really extending that legacy that we have. We've got an amazing track record and consistency that we have for the past 30 years, and now as we look to the next 30 years, we've got new waters and new business environment that we have to navigate. And so, but it's all about taking that legacy and taking those core principles and applying them to the next generation.
Yeah, how important is company culture for you, and how do you kind of really live that and pass that on to your whole team?
Yeah, you hear it at a conference every year. We're in the people business, and so if we take care of our employees, they take care of our guests. The way that we boil that down is we have 3 core principles that we call the HA promises. So we make promises and deliver on promises to our owners every day, our team members every day, and to our guests every day. And so we really focus in on that team member promise, because without them, they cannot help us deliver on those promises to our clients, our owners, and to our guests. And so, we identify that in our core values, what we call PEACH. We work really hard at that, especially coming out of COVID, when talent was such a scarce resource, I would say. And so getting that talent back into our industry was really important to us, and then how we train them, hold the accountability, and really have that purpose of what we're trying to achieve is really key to us and to our success.
Yeah, we hear it a lot. Labor is expensive, so how does kind of keeping a good company culture really translate on that bottom line?
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody, I say it every time, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you're a housekeeper, a front desk, or you're the CEO, if you don't feel like you have a purpose of what you're waking up to do every single day, then you're not going to feel valued in your compensation or valued by the company. So we put a lot of effort into that, and helping everyone understand, what I just said, the 3 promises that we have, and then what breaks down below that, and how that breaks down to a housekeeper, what their purpose is, and how they deliver on those promises, not only to the owner, but definitely to the guest and to each other. The big thing for us in our core values, passion, excellence, adaptability, community, and humble, is that community piece. We say that inside of our hotels is our community, so it's where one goes, we all go. And by focusing on that, we realize that we can really deliver on the promises to our owners. And we can keep that turnover down, which is where that cost creep comes in, because the replacement cost of not just the hotels, but also the people inside of them, it continues to creep up. So continuing to make sure everybody knows that purpose of what we're trying to achieve is how we've been able to keep those costs down. They're continuing to creep, there's no doubt about it, in all of our lives, no matter if it's at the grocery store or buying a new house or buying a new car. But I think this is just our new normal, and having people that bought into the community is really key for us.
Yeah. So you mentioned in the CEO role for a few years, but been with the company for over a decade,
Yep.
right? So, how do you look at what you're focused on most right now these days?
It's really looking through the windshield, right? I try not to look too much into the rearview mirror and see kind of what's behind us. It's really about where we want to take the company, and how do we make it as efficient as possible to deliver on those 3 promises that I said. And so technology is a key piece of that, but really about the guest experience, where that boils down to them. And so we're doing a lot today in soft branded hotels with a lot of our partners and development partners, helping them advise on what the guest is experiencing or what the guest is looking for out into the future. And that's where we bring the most value, and that's where I spend a lot of my time. I think that the hospitality industry will be a lot more fine-tuned as we look into the future. We're already seeing that today, but the experience has to be very, very intentional. And I think hospitality is moving in a great direction.
Yeah, you mentioned technology. How are you thinking about implementing new technologies into the hospitality industry? Where's your head at for that?
Yeah, we have to be very efficient with our dollars. We don't have endless capital like Silicon Valley does. So what we do is, let's take it from a foundational standpoint. I say it all the time, hospitality, we do a great job of identifying pain points in our industry and then creating a siloed approach to that pain point. We don't see a lot of consolidation of that, so all we've done is now we've got all 15 different platforms that our data lives in. And so for an operator like us, we need to be able to get our arms around that data to make decisions from it. Historically, that's been the operator, us personally going into all these different platforms. What Hospitality America is doing today is we've pulled in that data into our own data lake, and now waiting for what the next horizon looks like for AI, to be able to put AI on top of it. What we're doing operationally every day, and also what we're doing from our data, that's where we think the secret sauce will be, to making decisions quicker, faster, and hopefully with less bias than we bring sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got your ducks in a row for the AI revolution. That's
whatever
coming.
That looks like.
Whatever that looks like, you're ready.
We're trying to be.
Okay, so I know Hospitality America's secret sauce is being small but mighty. So how are you competing with the larger third-party managers? What's how are you positioning yourself to kind of provide a different level of service for your owners?
Like I just said about our guests, and that one intentional experiences in the hotel, our owners want the same from a management company. They want attention from the management company that they feel that we're in it every single day and understands the ebbs and flows of a market, ebbs and flows of a hotel. And so we're right there with them. I speak to all of our owners almost on definitely on an every other week basis. I'm very intentional with them and understanding what their pain points are, what they want to know. And so you don't always get that with the bigger companies, because you sometimes become a number. For us, we have 20 hotels in our portfolio. That is growing, but as it grows, we're doing it at a very strategic scale way, so that we don't ever lose those touch points. You mark that we're a 30-year company. We have 2 ownership groups that are 30-year clients of Hospitality America. So, that's really important to us, and so as we grow, I'm always making sure that we don't lose the aspects that those clients originally, why they're with us for 30 years. But I also think that's a benefit for new hotel owners when they come to us, is understanding, how we look at it as an owner.
Yeah, that's, you are in these very regular conversations with owners. What are their top concerns for 2026? How have you addressed them?
Margin creep, for sure. Margins are we're seeing that reduce if it's property taxes, if it's insurance, if it's our guest consumables. And ADRs and RevPARs, it's been stagnant at best in some markets. But what gives me a lot of hope is that this year, just like what Chris Nacetta said yesterday at one of the sessions, that he's seeing a lot of markers end of last year in Q1 that's showing that he's right, that we're starting to see an uptick in demand. We're seeing that too. Not in all of our markets, but in some of our major markets, we're seeing really great ADR growth. So that's where they're focused right now, is how we drive value on the ADR side, obviously RevPAR, and then what are we doing to mitigate cost? The talent, acquiring the best talent to lead the hotels, and then keeping the turnover down, obviously, in a high turnover business, and really focusing on those margins.
Yeah, you mentioned growing, so how are you thinking about approaching growth this year and into the future?
Historically, our growth has all been through development of the key partnerships that we've had. We have 5 partners today that we operate for, and as they've kind of looked for opportunities in development with us and on their own, we've grown in that way. We're starting to look at more acquisitions. We did our first acquisition in 2023, and now that's seeming to be a lot more viable. I was talking earlier with some individuals that, the private credit that some owners took on in 21, 22, and 23, thinking that simulated demand was the new normal. I think that's coming to, now they're having to kind of answer for that, and the values of those assets may not be where they originally thought they would be in that assessment, and so that creates opportunity for us, and especially in markets that we operate in. We bring a lot of efficiencies in those markets because of the tenure we have of the operators, and we can really create value add in some of that. So that's where we're looking there, and I think that'll continue probably in the next 24 months. But as we then start to see the uprise in ADRs and demand, what we think in 28, 29, 30, then development will be a lot more attainable.
Yeah. Well, I know Hospitality America has got some hotels in the World Cup market. So how are you thinking about getting ready for the World Cup? What are your expectations?
Yeah, so it's all about pace. So we are focused intently. If you look at the game, where the games fall and how they lie, what we're really trying to level out is that demand, so that we're not seeing huge spikes on game days or the day after and the day before. We're trying to really take and find great group and good group business as a base, that maybe we take at a little bit less of a rate, but we're going to spread that out over a week or 2 weeks, as opposed to ride those roller coaster waves of a game on a Tuesday, game on a Thursday, and you're having the whole hotel check out on a Wednesday and all check in on a Thursday. So we're trying to be very, very strategic, and because it's very expensive for the hotel to do that. And so far we've been very successful. We are being, every single week, every single day, our revenue management team is looking at those dates to assess demand. Right now we have some good markers. I mean, we have hotels in downtown Miami. We're really thankful for the draw we have there, and I think it's going to be great. Even Kansas City, right now we have a hotel in Kansas City. Originally we weren't sure how that draw might be. It's been great. We have some, England, Argentina, Netherlands, all having their base camp there. So I think it's all about the length of stay from our perspective.
Yeah, I know Kansas City is always an interesting one when you look at the rest of the markets selected. So
heart of the country.
Does that make it almost more opportunistic for Kansas City? Like, are they an outlier in that way too?
I think they are. I don't think San Francisco had a great draw, and I think it's because they're so far removed from where the other games are, in Canada and in Mexico. I think a lot of the teams looked at Kansas City and centrally located, and you can be a 3-hour flight from just about any game. And so I think that was attractive to a lot of the teams. And so originally we didn't think that, because you don't think of Kansas City as being that sexy market like a Miami, but obviously they're there to play.
Yeah.
And what we're starting to see, even we have hotels in Greenville, South Carolina, that we're starting to see some bleed over from Atlanta, where international travel is coming to Atlanta, but they want to be able to make a trip of it, so a week, 2 weeks, and so they're exploring some other markets that are drivable from an Atlanta, from Kansas City, from Miami, to make it more of an extended vacation, if you will.
That is something we hypothesized and for over a year talked about, is that going to happen? So it's good to hear that this is something that's actually happening. People are coming.
Wouldn't say on a massive scale,
okay.
But we are seeing numbers that are giving those indicators.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's good to know. Okay, so beyond World Cup and some of the things we talked about, what else are you focused on this year? What keeps you up at night? What are you keeping a close eye on?
Yeah, I think what keeps me up at night a lot of times is what the future looks like for our industry from growing the next leader, right? What I tell our teams is we've got to be ready to grow that mid-level manager into the business leader that we require for our industry. When you hear some of the Wall Street talk earlier, and you hear some of the things that come out of Silicon Valley, what you hear is that mid-level, director, manager, that is, AI is a lot more knowledgeable than that person. So how do we get that person to the next level of understanding so that then they can use it? I think that's going to be a roadblock for us in our industry. And Mitch Patel said it earlier, and he's so right, that in our industry historically, you could go from a housekeeper to a general manager in a short amount of time. And I don't want to ever lose that, because that's what our business thrives on. I'm a product of that. I started as a night auditor at 22 years old, and I don't want to ever to lose that. And so I think we'll have to create new ways to invest in our next leader.
Yeah, well, that is a fantastic message to end on. So Ben, thank you so much for your time today. This was lovely.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Davon Reed.
I'm Omari Head.
And I'm Chris Henry.
We're the hosts of the Next Gen and Lodging podcast on the Hotel News Now podcast network. It's a monthly show in which we interview a new generation of hoteliers to get their insights into a variety of disciplines and topics, from finance to food and beverage and hotel operations. Listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode of the CoStar News Hotels podcast was recorded on March 17th, 2026 by Meredith Sheridan at the 2026 Hunter Conference and was edited for the podcast by me, Natalie Harms. Find all hotel industry news at costar.com/hotelnews. Thanks for listening.